Everybody but Miss Dolores, is it hot enough in here for you? We are going to continue looking in the Judges. Tonight we're going to be in chapter 11. I don't know why it does that sometimes. But anyway, what do we remember about the Judges? It's been a little while since we talked about them. Remember the cycle, right? Pretty much. They're in a right relationship. The Israelites are in a good relationship with God. Everything is good. They sin. Sin leads to rebellion. Rebellion leads to the judgment of God, which leads to the enslavement of His people, which leads to them repenting, which leads to Him forgiving them and sending them a deliverer, a judge, which leads to them being in a right relationship with God, and the cycle continues. And so we pick up here with Jephthah, the ninth judge, in chapter 11, beginning in verse 1. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a valiant warrior, but he was the son of a harlot, and Gilead was the father of Jephthah. All right, so pause for just a moment. When we think of the judges, we think of superior people. We think of somebody that if God's going to use them as a judge, there's something special about them. But in reality, what we find when we study the judges, they all have a certain amount of baggage that they bring. And if we were to take resumes and say, okay, Lord, who would you like for us to call as a judge? The reality is most of the judges, what we know about them from the Word, we would say, oh, he's disqualified. Jephthah's mother was a harlot. His resume is not going to make its way to the top. And yet, the Lord uses him as a judge. And so the big takeaway from that for us is each one of us has baggage. We are all a bunch of flawed individuals. Nobody is perfect. There is none righteous, no, not one. And yet, God uses us. Now, we're not one of the judges in the book of Judges, but each one of us has an opportunity to deliver people. We can share the gospel with people and allow the Lord to use us to deliver a message of salvation. And if they choose to, they can accept that message. So anyway, aren't we glad that God uses flawed individuals? Because if we had to be perfect in order to serve Him, I wouldn't be here, and neither would you, because we're not perfect. So verse 2, Gilead's wife bore him sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, you shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the sons of another woman. So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob, and worthless fellows gathered themselves about Jephthah, and they went out with him. What does that tell us? It's important to watch the company that we keep. So these worthless fellows gathered around him. They went out with him. In verse 4, it came about after a while that the sons of Ammon fought against Israel. When the sons of Ammon fought against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. Why? Because he was a valiant warrior. Verse 1. So the Israelites are under attack. Quick, all of a sudden, we have a need. So now all of a sudden, Jephthah's important to us. So they go and send for him. In verse 6 it said, and they said to Jephthah, come, be our chief, that we may fight against the sons of Ammon. Then Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, do you not hate me and drive me away from my father's house? So why have you come to me now when you are in trouble. So this is where you and I say, you know what, I wasn't good enough for you yesterday, but today you have a need, so figure it out on your own, right? That's what's in our nature. Let's see how Jephthah handles the situation. The elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "For this reason we have now returned to you, that you may go with us and fight with the sons of Ammon, and become head over the inhabitants of Gilead." So Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you take me back to fight against the sons of Ammon, and the Lord gives them up to me, I will become your head." The elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord is witness between us. Surely we will do as you have said." So as we look at the judge Jephthah, I want us to think about vows and vows that are made and promises that are made, because we have to be careful the promises that we make. So Jephthah has said, okay, I will go and I will lead, and if the Lord gives me the victory, if he gives the Ammonites over to us, I will be your head. I will be in charge. So there's a vow that is made, but it's also received. The elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord is witness between us. Surely we will do as you have said." So there is a vow on both parts. Jephthah made the vow. It was confirmed by the elders. In verse 11, then Jephthah went up with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and chief over them, and Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. Now Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the sons of Ammon, saying, "What is between you and me, that you have come to fight against my land?" So here's a lesson for us. When there is imminent conflict with someone, it's always better to discuss it first, right? We can sit down and discuss versus just go to court or drastic measures right off the bat. So Jephthah's trying to handle this problem peacefully. In verse 13 now it says, the king of the sons of Ammon said to the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel took away my land when they came up from Egypt, from the Arnon as far back as Jabbok and the Jordan, therefore return them peaceably now." So what's Jephthah going to do with this? Did they take the land from them? Ultimately, God did. The Israelites, the promise that was made to Abraham is the land would be an inheritance, and now they have come back out of Egypt, and he has delivered that land. So it's fulfillment, and God went before them and did all the fighting, and the land has been given back. Would it be pleasing to the Lord for Jephthah to say, okay, you know what, take the land back? No, it would not. So they asked for it to be returned peaceably. In verse 14 it gets back to, it says, "But Jephthah sent messengers again to the kings of the sons of Ammon, and they said to him, 'Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab, nor the lands of the sons of Ammon. For when they came up from Egypt, and Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh, then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, Please let us pass through your land. But the king of Edom would not listen, and they also sent the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then they went through the wilderness and around the land of Edom and around the land of Moab, and came to the east side of the land of Moab, and they camped beyond the Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the border of Moab. And Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, the king of Heshbon, and Israel said to them, Please let us pass through your land to our place. But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people and camped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. The Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel possessed all the land of the Amorites, the inhabitants of that country. So they possessed the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon as far as the Jabbok, and from the wilderness as far as the Jordan. Since now the Lord, the God of Israel, drove the Amorites from before his people, Israel, are you then to possess it? Do you not possess what Chemosh, your God, gives you to possess? So whatever the Lord our God has driven out before us, we will possess it. So there's Jephthah's answer. I mean, the Lord gave us this land. We're not going to give it back. It wasn't yours in the first place. So we're going to be at an impasse right here, right? Verse 24 says, verse 25, now are you any better than Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever strive with Israel, or did he ever fight against them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and Araror and its villages, and the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon, 300 years, why did you not recover them within that time? I therefore have not sinned against you, but you are doing me wrong by making war against me. May the Lord, the judge today between the sons of Israel and the sons of Ammon. But the king of the sons of Ammon disregarded the message which Jephthah sent. So they tried it. They sent a delegation. They tried to handle it peacefully, and it can't be handled peaceably, so we're going to see this tragic vow beginning in verse 29. Now the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, so that he passed through Gilead and Manasseh. Then he passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he went on to the sons of Ammon. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord. He said, if you will indeed give the sons of Ammon into my hand, then it shall be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the sons of Ammon, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Okay, so I made the comment early on that we were going to see some vows and learn about making vows, right? So Jephthah just made a terrible vow. We'll learn later why that's such a bad vow. Certainly there's no way he knew the implications that he was getting himself into, but one thing that we can say about Jephthah is he kept his vows. He was a man of his word. We see a lot in our society. There's a whole lot of fine print out there, right? There's a whole lot of fine print. 30-day money-back guarantee. As long as you and you have to read all the fine print. There's no fine print. Jephthah's a man of his word. And if we're not careful today, we like to look for some fine print whenever we make a promise or a vow, and then we don't want to keep that. Picking back up in verse 32, so Jephthah crossed over the sons of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. He struck them in a very great slaughter from Aroer to the entrance of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel Keramim. So the sons of Ammon were subdued before the sons of Israel. When Jephthah came to his house at Mizpah, behold, his daughter was coming out to meet him with tambourines and with dancing. Now she was his one and only child. Besides her, he had no son or daughter. Can you imagine the feeling in his bones when he looked up and saw his daughter come out of the house? I don't know. Maybe he had a servant at his house that he didn't like, and he was hoping that's who would come. I don't know what he was expecting. I don't know what he was thinking, why he made this vow. But at this moment, he has to be second-guessing. He has to be wishing to recant this vow. Verse 35, when he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you are among those who trouble me. For I have given my word to the Lord, and I cannot take it back. Do you feel the anguish in his voice? The broken heart. He already knows. He's got to keep his word to the Lord. He cannot take it back. Verse 36, so she said to him, my father, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me as you have said, since the Lord has avenged your enemies, the sons of Ammon. She said to her father, let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go to the mountains and weep because of my virginity, and I and my companions. Then he said, go. So he sent her away for 2 months, and she left with her companions and wept on the mountains because of her virginity. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did to her according to his vow which he had made, and she had no relations with a man. Thus it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, for 4 days in the year. I don't know who's more admirable in this story. Jephthah's foolish for the vow that he made. It was a foolish vow in our minds, in my mind, right? That he would make this vow. But he did. He gave his word to the Lord, and by golly, he's going to keep his word. So you have to give him credit for being willing to be obedient and to keep his word. But here's his daughter who says, okay, look, I know that you made a vow with the Lord, and you have to keep that. Let it be done to me just as you vowed. But I'm going to go cry for 2 months in the mountains with my friends. She came back in 2 months. He didn't send for her. She came back in 2 months. How many of us, if we knew that we were coming back to a death sentence, and somebody said, all right, look, John David, look, go out, celebrate, have a good time, but be back here in 2 months. We finna have to send out the search party, right? Yeah, I'll be right there. Finna get a passport in somebody else's name. I'll find a wig or something. We fixing to be gone, right? His daughter came back. So they're both loyal, obedient servants of the Lord. What is a story from the Old Testament that they would have known about a son and a child, or a father and a child being sacrificed to the Lord that they may have been thinking of? Abraham and Lot. Maybe she was thinking, well, you know what? The Lord's going to deliver me, or not Abraham and Lot. Lot's his nephew. All these guys they go for a walk in my brain and they come out at the wrong time. But Abraham and Isaac, and maybe she's thinking, well, the Lord's going to deliver me. And maybe Jephthah's thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to be obedient and the Lord's going to stop me. But he didn't. If I stand right here. But he didn't, and so the Israelites, for a long time, commemorated her death. They had a celebration that lasted 4 days every year. I hope they come up with something better to remember us by, right? But there's nothing better to be remembered by than our faithful obedience to the Lord. It cost his daughter her life. It cost Jephthah his only child. What does it cost us to obediently follow the Lord? It's very small in comparison, right? So that's our takeaway tonight. Let's be faithful to the vows that we make. Let's do what we tell the Lord we're going to do. I'm guilty, and I'm going to say y'all are probably guilty as well. There's one of these $5 theological words that I'll give you tonight for no extra charge. It's called placation of deity. God is in control, and He has all the power, right? No disagreement there. And we like to try to manipulate Him and get Him to do what we think is best for us. And so we make a bargain with God. And we've probably all been there. Lord, if you'll just help my son, or if you'll help my daughter, if you'll get me out of this situation, I will. And you can fill in the blank. I'll go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I'll serve when the nominating committee calls me and they ask me to serve. Whatever they ask me to do, I'll do it. I'll teach children's church. I'll teach Sunday school. Lord, if you'll just, whatever it is that we're needing at that particular time. And then what happens? A little bit of time passes and somehow or another we forget that vow, don't we? Lord, I'll be there every Sunday morning. I'll be there every Sunday night. I'll be there every Wednesday night. And then February rolls around and we got Super Bowl Sunday. Well, I can miss one Sunday night. I can miss one Sunday for this. I can miss for that. And the next thing you know, we're right back where we were. And the Lord's already blessed us. If we make a vow to the Lord, we need to be careful to keep that vow. Is there anything wrong with making a vow to the Lord? Absolutely not. We should. When we ask the Lord to forgive us and ask Him to be the Lord of our life, we're vowing to follow Him. We sing songs like, "Wherever He leads, I'll go." Guess what? We just spoke that. We sang it. It's a vow. We like to do it like this. Wherever He leads, I'll go. As long as it's not over there. As long as it's not to those people. But we ought to say, wherever He leads, I'll go. And we ought to, when we make that vow, we need to be faithful and obedient and fulfill that vow. Jephthah was blessed by God. He was a great warrior. Where did that ability come from? From the Lord. Just look at his family heritage. He wouldn't have been our first pick, right? He was a flawed individual. And the Lord used him to deliver the nation. And he still uses us today as flawed individuals. And tonight, I hope that you've read Proverbs chapter 1. If not, don't forget to read Proverbs chapter 1 today. And then tomorrow is going to be chapter 2. And since September has 30 days, and I opened my mouth, inserted my foot this morning, on the 30th, read chapter 30 and 31. How's that? Is that a good solution? Oops. I hope that's the biggest mistake I make today. But it was pretty funny. But Brother Steve, everybody who said something to me had a big smile on their face, and I could feel the love through their kidding. I know that if they're picking on me, they love me. And I pick on y'all too, so it's all good. It's all good. It's give and take. And just on the 30th, we'll read 30 and 31. That was true. That was true. I did have one person say, well, at least you know I was paying attention because I caught that there was 30 days. Well, if you didn't catch it, I'll go ahead and tell you September only has 30 days and Proverbs has 31 chapters. I did it. That's all right. I had Abraham sacrificing his nephew Lot up on the mountain, so I'm just having one of those days. What's that? It's the heat. Yeah, it's hot. Yeah. It's getting to those few brain cells that I have left. But let's be faithful to the Lord. Make vows to Him. That's good. Keep the vows that you make. Keep the vows that you make. Brother Gary, would you dismiss us tonight in a word of prayer?